All right. Well, hello, everybody. It is Experiment Beyond Your Comfort Zone, our DECA Leadership Session series. So thank you so much for joining today. And we'll kind of go over the leadership concepts that Kansas Leadership Center has provided for DECA and other organizations around the state of Kansas. We've partnered with them for quite a while, but it's kind of an overview of what the leadership principles look like from the Kansas Leadership Center. Leadership is an activity, not a position. So you kind of like take yourself back a little bit and think, okay, it doesn't have to be the person who has that title next to their name necessarily that can be a leader. Anyone can lead anytime, anywhere. So, I mean, it could be young and old. It doesn't matter where you're at within an organization, your family, anybody can be the leader. And it starts with you, and you have to engage others. And your purpose must be clear, and it's also risky. You kind of have to put a little stake in the game in order to make some progress happen with your leadership challenge. So leadership is a lot of great things, right? So mobilizing people to make progress on deep, daunting, adaptive challenges. And we can, talk about adaptive, what that means, but basically making progress, going from point A to point B. It doesn't always require that technical fix to get things accomplished in your leadership world. And so here's kind of a step back from the different competencies that the Kansas Leadership Center has provided for DECA. It starts with diagnose the situation, manage self, energize others, and intervene skillfully. So there's different segments underneath that, different topics between all those different categories. And today we'll be talking about experiment beyond your comfort zone, which we'll get to in just a second. And here's more about that technical and adaptive approach. The technical side, the left column, the solution's pretty clear. Hey, I've got this problem, I need to get it fixed. So you kind of, knock on the door for those experts. You call them, you take, your car to the shop to get it fixed. You move on, you call a plumber, get the situation fixed there, and you move on. But adaptive work kind of requires a little bit more deeper thought, deeper thinking. You need more people at the table. So you have to have those stakeholders at the ready to help you out. It's not just, hey, I'm going to, be in charge and call the shots, and then that's how it goes. There are situations where that is apparent for people, where they just take that adaptive approach single-handedly, and it doesn't quite always work out the way we want it or intend to. So leadership is about doing what is needed, not what is comfortable. So kind of focusing on today's topic with experiment beyond your comfort zone, you have to do what's needed, not always what's comfortable. If you just did everything that was in your comfort zone per se, it doesn't always move the needle in the way that you'd want it to. So we can kind of talk about this for a second if anyone wants to put in the chat or open up your mic. But what are some ways that you feel that leadership can be necessary, but not like just sticking in that comfort area? If you have any examples, feel free to share.
I think that sometimes you have to raise the heat, and sometimes that is calling out the elephant in the room or the unpopular thing that might be uncomfortable. It's easier maybe not to talk about it sometimes, but then nothing gets done and nothing changes.
Right. It just kind of revolves in that circle of, either repetitiveness of, okay, we're not really making any progress. The status quo stays the same. Nothing is really changed at all. I mean, leadership is about, changing and adapting, and, that's just how life works, right? So you do have to move from one point to another eventually. So going back to our, making progress, exactly. So going back to our chart here with the different competencies, we're highlighting experiment beyond your comfort zone. So this, falls in that managed self zone. So we have a lot of different topics in that area. Take care of yourself, and choose among competing values, and get used to uncertainty and conflict. That experiment beyond your comfort zone, kind of falls in that area where you focus on you, and then you can help others. You're no good to the company, you're no good to an organization or yourself if you're not being true to yourself. So that's what we're going to kind of discuss today. And we'll begin with this little cartoon picture. We have, a couple people on the high wire here, and the little quote, I don't know if it's hard to read, but yeah, I get the part about you feeling better with training wheels on, but here's the thing, dot, dot, dot. So any kind of observations that are, out there that, people want to chime on. I do like this cartoon kind of illustrating the kind of your comfort level here.
Maybe an observation is like worried.
For sure. Yeah. Like say we'll call him an expert up there that looks like he knows what he's doing. It's like, what are you doing here? Little lady, with the training wheels on. Not sure if this is going to work out. I think he's kind of having that feeling. My interpretation would be like, what are you doing up here? This is my show. So what's going on?
I think one of the things that's really hard for me to get past is that word failure. I have it, if I experiment and it doesn't work, that I was a failure. And being that person that strives to always do the best, be the best, you want everything to work. I'm still battling getting over that that it's okay sometimes if things don't work. That's how we improve and get better. It's just an experiment. And so that I love the word experiment because it helps me, but at the same time I don't always think of it that way or put it into practice.
For sure.
I'm thinking about this, like, yes, she's more comfortable with the training wheels, but like her comfort zone is not helping her get across the line.
Right. She might be pedaling really quickly on those training wheels on flat ground, no problem, doing circles and all this stuff. But yeah, you get up there and that definitely takes a little bit more skill and effort. And
yeah, it's not helping in this situation. It's great on the ground. It's not helping in this situation.
It's like, hey, you know what? She's got her floaties on. She's ready to get in. And it's like, oh, wait, that's not going to help you up here. So or get, some goggles or whatever. It's like, yeah, quite different situation scenario for you. So cool. But yeah, I think, kind of expanding your thought process and, building some new skills from that. I think of, comfort. Kids can be comfortable anywhere. And, whether it's like on this pile of rocks, on this cat, I mean, they seem to take a nap or do whatever it looks like an uncomfortable spot for an adult or anybody, but kids seem to live and adapt to anything. So think about how our comfort zone, like, hey, we wouldn't really be in that scenario or situation, but everybody's situation and comfort zone is unique to them. And that's where we thrive. And that's where we kind of feel the most comfortable, right? So the kids just feel like they can go anywhere. So we almost have to have that mentality, put ourselves in their shoes. So in the chat, she's not worried about the outcome of what could happen if the cat doesn't like her hug. Exactly. I think, any kind of animal, they might have a little reaction. It's like, hey, I don't like your head laying on me like that or whatever. So doesn't really care about the outcome. So that's good. All right. So some ways you can always kind of pull yourself back and question if you are experimenting in the right direction. You can ask yourself, am I outside of my comfort zone with this effort? Am I unsure of the exact outcome of each experiment? And am I learning? We talked about experimenting earlier, and I think this is a spot where you can really tell yourself if you're making that progress or moving that needle. If you feel a little queasy, okay, this might be a little unsure or a little bit of a risk factor. That's a good thing. If we always do what we do and stick in that comfort area, it's not going to always pan out the way we'd like it to. So I think you have to think about those questions. And then am I learning? If I'm making any kind of progress in my knowledge base because of this, like that could be helpful. I think of asking people that aren't in your circle necessarily, getting their opinion or their thoughts. You might learn something new. It's like, I never thought about that angle or that perspective from someone else's shoes, kind of walking in their shoes a little bit. And feel free to jump in if you have thoughts or questions? So I think about when we talked about the expert side, you know, when to go get your car fixed or something, you know, you call that expert to kind of give that technical fix. But, you know, if we do stay in our wheelhouse and we don't change, we don't expect our communities to change along with it. So whatever that challenge might be, you know, if you're trying to help with a coalition or help with a family, you know, if they're not exposed to something other than what their cycle has been like in their life, you're not going to get much difference out of them. So sometimes I think about rotating the tires every now and then. You don't have to reinvent, you know, things for people, but just kind of give another outlook or an outlet to be successful in whatever challenge they're looking for. And then tweak your style too. Sometimes if you lead a certain way, it doesn't always get followers to pick up on what you're you know, striving to accomplish. So some of the other questions that you might be able to pick up on are, you know, what unpopular action might lead to progress. You know, the quote about being, you know, the popular action isn't always, you know, going to lead to success. So maybe think of some other action that might help people think about what they're having trouble with. And what difficult choice could help out. What will I lose if I make an uncomfortable choice? Like we were talking about the risky part, you have to be able to give up something in order to gain progress. You know, like a football term, you might have to lose a couple yards in order to, you know, go forward the next play. So you always thinking forward and what could be the next outcome down the road. What uncomfortable action might be useful, and what holds you back from trying something different, and whose support will lessen the risk. And great quote or great comment, lose to gain is tough for me. I think we all struggle with that, where we're, you know, wanting to win and not think about that. Okay, what would it take for us to win? You know, one person might be winning, but not everybody at the table is feeling that success or getting fed the way they want to. So I think, yeah, it might be a couple of little losses here, and then down the road, it'll pay off big time for everybody, which is great. So when you think about, we mentioned raising the heat as potential with comfort zone, they kind of do go hand in hand. Like you don't want to be too outside of your comfort zone where you're not like yourself anymore. Like you can't, you know, fake it too far and be like, hey, I'm totally gonna accomplish this, this, and this. And it's like, wait, let's back up a little bit. So here's a couple bullet points that might help you keep you on the same track. You're feeling incompetent, but willing. Like you might not know all the answers, but you're willing to try, you're experimenting, you're adapting to different circumstances around you. Your pulse quickens. I mean, you have a little bit of energy going. Things are kind of like we were saying, the queasiness feeling, and you're also taking conscious action. You know what you're trying to accomplish. You're going on the same page with people, and you're making progress in that direction. So you're willing to step out. But there's also a point where you get too far, like we were saying, you lose your edge. You've gone too far. Your identity isn't there. Your purpose is off track, off the rails, and then you enter the danger zone. The anxiety is consuming you, and you know, I had to throw in Mr. Tom Cruise and Pete Maverick Mitchell here to let you know, hey, if you get to that danger zone feeling, it's not good. This is a way that you can be losing too much. That risk is just too much. And right on cue, the risk of loss is too much. And so, I mean, I love this movie and I love the new one, but thinking of the original, and I don't want to spoil it if, you know, people get frustrated or anything, but, you know, plug your ears for a second. But Top Gun, Tom Cruise, the main character, his, you know, wingman is Goose. Maverick and Goose are buddies throughout the whole movie until unfortunately, you know, Goose dies. So that's a part where they enter that danger zone feeling. They lose too much. You don't want to go too far. You have to get back to that spot where, you know, you have that little bit of comfortness, but also a spot where you can keep your purpose going. So. All right, so chance to discover some new options. You expand your bandwidth, will increase your leadership capability. So kind of look at that center part. That's you in the middle, your values, your experience, your skills, your family, your preferences, and then things that trigger you, you know, and then you kind of push to the side with all those experiments, you know, all those different situations that come up, all the different people throwing different ideas at you. There's a lot of chance for success and failure with that. And here's a few ways to practice some experiments. You know, meet someone who makes you uncomfortable. Be curious before offering advice. Ask those clarifying questions like, what do you mean? Or could you tell me more about this or that? What was nice about the Kansas Leadership Center, they provided this checklist for you to experiment beyond your comfort zone and kind of give you a little bit of, you know, 1 to 10 zone there. Are you in or out of your comfort zone? If you're on that 1 to 10, so 1 is way outside your comfort zone, so you kind of want it to be more on the middle, on your edge. But then if you're perfectly comfortable, you're not quite experimenting to your full potential. So if you're on the, you know, 1 or a 10, it's not going to probably be very you know, beneficial for everybody. So you kind of want to be in that middle range on the edge to kind of poke out. Any questions or anything, comments that are sparking ideas? No? Okay. That's all the slides I have today. So we kind of rushed through this really quick, but I think of when the comfort zone, to me, like you want to be in your situation where you can have success, but also you need to get on that ledge a little bit, but not too far. So that's kind of my takeaway from it, is that, you know, you need to be able to experiment and be in that queasy, uncomfortable stage sometimes.
Yeah, it's a hard one to know, you know, when are you going too far? How do you make yourself as comfortable as possible in the productive zone to make progress? I'm thinking about an experiment I'm doing right now that is out of my comfort zone, and I'm willing and able, but how do I make sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do in that experiment to be successful, not just for myself, but for DECA, the company, and for the prevention team. So right now I'm thinking about, you know, who else do I need to reach out to be involved and to get involved, to make sure that that I have the tools that I need, and that I'm reaching out for the information I need to for help. So yeah, it's kind of a tricky slope. And then also thinking about self-care in the meantime, not losing sleep over it, and, you know, letting it take over my life.
Right. And I mean, we all kind of have that feeling where it's all going to work out, you know, it'll be okay. It's the, you know, we have that, you know, security blanket in a way to kind of help out. But at the same time, it's like, hey, this is not exactly what I love to do or am the best at, but hey, I'm willing to give it a shot and have an experiment with it. So
Yeah, for sure. Anybody else have anything they're working on that is out of your comfort zone? Any experiments?
Mine is public speaking. Like, I spoke at the CPA all staff meeting and I was literally like shaking. So Sarah was there, so she probably saw me shaking in my boots. But yeah,
You
so
did great.
thanks. That's what people say, so I'm trying to believe it. But so I'm just trying to get better at like speaking in front of like a large group of people. And I've done it before. I just want to I see like Lisa and Marianne, like how they just like make announcements and it's like so carefree, and I'm like, I want to be like that. So I've been trying to put myself in more situations where I have to like do that, and then just kind of like being okay with being uncomfortable, and then like the aftermath, if I embarrass myself a little bit, I'm like, it's fine, you know. That's kind of where I'm at.
right, you have to have that feeling. I mean, always heard like if you're nervous, it's a good thing. You know, if you have those butterflies in your stomach, it's a good thing to be nervous. It sparks creativity. It gets you going. And I can think of, you know, people that get in front of the group, you know, they might be used and comfortable to that audience, but what if they were to go to a different audience? Like, hey, I'm a teacher of, you know, math or something. And then you go and it's like, oh, now I'm going to have to go and sub in for the English class. You might have some of the same tools of, you know, speaking or, you know, keeping the protection, direction, and order of the classroom, but the subject material is in a way foreign to you, or you may not know all the students in the class. I mean, there's always going to be that situation where you're not going to be comfortable in front of others. And so that's a good way to put you out there and get in front of, I mean, a friendly audience. And so you're not having to struggle through. Everyone's like, hey, you're on our team. We're able to watch and see and all of us grow together. So that's good.
Yeah, I love what Darian said about being okay with being uncomfortable, and to be okay with it for a while and to learn to kind of live in it as adapting yourself to being okay with it. And like you said, Alex, letting it push you to being more creative and to doing better and to doing a good job without getting so far out there, like Samantha talked about, worrying and fear and letting it, be too risky, too far.
Yeah, and that fear is real. It can consume you. That's all you're thinking about. And so, yeah, you have to kind of step back and say, all right, this is, expect to have a little bit of turmoil or some trouble, turbulence on the way.
Yeah. I need to learn to be okay. If I can figure out when's enough and when's too much and how do I control that?
Right. And I mean, I think of sports way too much, but another like analogy I think of is, like getting into an argument with an official or an umpire, referee, whatever. Like they're human. They're going to make mistakes. Like expect that going in, expect a bad call to go against you and not everything go your way. So you have to be willing to adapt. And if you're not, head and shoulders above that, then you're going to get consumed and it's just going to be bad for you. So
yeah. I was thinking about Sarah, about your experiment, and with the colors and stuff in your house. And it's like, what's the worst that would happen really? If I was overcome with so much fear, it's like, what's the worst that can happen? Maybe you don't love it, you can redo it. Or if you can't redo it, you could change some other, lighting or pillows or things in your room to adjust the, so sometimes it helps me to look at that end result as to help me to kind of settle down. It's okay. It's not that big of a deal. It's not going to be life changing.
Yeah, I appreciate that that perspective. It's just need to pick something.
I know.
And I think we're like our own worst critic on it. It's like, oh, these look hideous or whatever. And it's like someone else is like, it looks fine. What are you talking about? It's just all
especially
these
my husband. I swear he only sees like 10 colors. I'm like these all look the same. No, they don't.
Right. It's like, okay, no, this shade's a little bit different or whatever. Yeah,
but I love how you thought about, okay, getting the swats, and maybe you can get the little samples and you can paint a little streak on the actual wall. You could get other people to come in and get their opinions. So there's a lot of things along the way. So I'm using your analogy to put it into perspective in mine, to help me to think, what are some of those things that I can do with my experiment to help me along the way.
Yeah, and it's all an experiment. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer for it. So it's, there's one you'll settle on, but it is progress or tough to make that choice. So yeah. So cool. Well, if there's any other questions or thoughts, we'll be having more of these discussions coming up here in the future. But thank you so much for joining today and discussing our DECA leadership sessions. And I hope to see you guys here soon.
Thanks, Alex.